The only way forward, if we are going to improve the quality of environment, is to get everybody involved. You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. It's on this note, I welcome you to the Maiden public lecture titled Transcending Barriers to Environmental Mainstreaming in Nigeria, a program put together by the Center for Environmental Human Resource Development, University of Lagos. This wonderful morning, we have eminent personalities in our midst here at the Tayo Aderinokun Lecture Theatre of the University of Lagos. A lovely Thursday morning, the 20th day of July 2023. At this juncture, I respectfully want to recognize the 13th Vice Chancellor of University of Lagos and the chief host of this event, Professor Folashade Tolulope Ogunshola, FAS, OON. She's here in company of members of management. We have the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development Services, Professor Ayodele Victoria Ashenua. A round of applause for her. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management Services, Professor Lucien Obina Chuku. A round of applause for him. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Research, Professor Bolanle Obo. A round of applause for her. Registrar and Secretary to the Governing Council of University of Lagos, Ismaila Oladejo Aziz Esquire. A round of applause for him. The youngest bossa is also here with us, Mrs. Oluwafumilola Adekunle FCA. A round of applause for her. The Provost of the College of Medicine, Professor Anthony Oke. A round of applause for him. Director, Works and Physical Planning Department, Engineer Johnson Akinwande. A round of applause for him. Our Director for Academic Planning, Professor Olusegun Ilori. A round of applause for him. With the kind permission of my Vice Chancellor, we have former Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Research here, Professor Oluwole Familoni, FAS. Former Registrar is also here, Dr. Taiwo Folashade Paye, FNIM. And I recognize you, the former bossa, Dr. Latif Odekunle. The chairman of today's occasion, Chief Olusegun Osunkeye, Commander of the Order of Niger, Officer of the Order of the Federal Republic, and the chairman, Osunkeye and Associates. A round of applause for him. Our guest lecturer, Mr. Victor Chioze Imevbore, Fellow of the Nigerian Environmental Society and the Managing Director, Environmental Resources Manager Limited, ERML. A round of applause for him also. I don't know, maybe the wife is here. Okay. But she will come and we'll do the recognition because we have a list here. the Chairman, Center for Environmental Human Resource Development of the University of Lagos, the board, distinguished Professor Babajide Alo, Fellow of the Academy of Science, and former Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Research. Thank you very much, sir. We have heads of department here, deans, and members of the university community. Owing to exigency of time, I might not be able to take all those names. You are most welcome. A round of applause for all of them. At this juncture, I want to call on Pastor Bisi Olowoyo to please help us with the opening prayer.
Can we please rise to pray? Our Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for the gift of life again, for bringing us together for this maiden lecture of this committee. We thank you because you are the author of life, and we appreciate you for giving us life today. Receive all our thanks, Lord, in Jesus' name. As we gather this morning for this lecture, we ask that your Spirit will gather with us. We ask that your Spirit will direct the affairs. We ask that, Lord, you will be the chairman of this occasion yourself, and you will take over all our events and activities. And when we are done, Lord, we pray that all of the glory will remain yours and yours alone. Thank you for answered prayers. In Jesus' name, we have prayed.
I'm sorry, I should have informed us that after that opening prayer, we shall remain upstanding as we take the rendition of the national anthem of our dear country, Nigeria. Apologies. Please be seated. God bless Nigeria. God bless University of Lagos. And God bless you all. I've just been told that our guest lecturer is in company of some of his friends. He told us the wife is on the way. The friend, Professor Olawale Olawoyin. A round of applause. Representative of the 240 Associates, Mr. Obiora Nnaji. Mr. Ufoma Emmanuel, Managing Director of Chapel Energies. I'm sure they are all on their way. They will join us very, very soon. Moving swiftly and quickly, we now invite the chairman of the board, distinguished Professor Babajide Alo, FAS, for his opening remarks.
Madam Vice Chancellor, Professor Mrs. Folashade Ogunshola, the chairman of the day, well, let me recognize before the chairman other principal officers of the university who are in the room. I start obviously with Professor Ayo Asenwa, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Bola Obo, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics. Of course, the lead of the center is also a Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Olusegun. The registrar of the university, the man with the longest signature that I've ever seen in my life, Barrister Aziz. The bossa of the university, you're also fully recognized. The provost of the College of Medicine of the University of Lagos, thank you for joining us. The director of academic planning of the university, Professor Soji Lori, who quietly turned 60 a few days ago. The members of the board of the center who are in the room, Pastor BC Oluyo is here. The speaker of the day, Victor Imevbore, and all the others who are unavoidably absent. Let me particularly, before I come to the chairman, recognize, Dr. Adegbite from the Faculty of Law. Particularly recognize Professor Selina Madumezia, one of Nigeria's frontline environmentalists. She has been in this business of environment for decades, not ages. Deans who are in the room, several of them who are here, heads of departments, there are professors who are here, colleagues, former registrar, former bossa, Dr. Latif Adekunle, who sneaked on me a few days ago in Ilorin. Indeed, exceedingly delighted, Madam Vice Chancellor, to welcome you all on behalf of the board of the Center for Environmental Human Resources Development of this university to the inauguration and maiden public lecture of this Center of Excellence. It is with deep sense of gratitude that I welcome the Vice Chancellor of this great university, and I thank you for making it because I know how busy you are, being Vice Chancellor of a frontline university like Unilag. Please give her a round of applause because I know what trouble she took for her to be sitting on this chair this morning. Thank you so much, Madam Vice Chancellor. I particularly welcome our chairman, the Babalaje of Egbaland, as we popularly want to call him. Chief Olusegun Osunkeye. Of course, he needs very little introduction. But let me say that he's one of Nigeria's best boardroom guru that God has ever created. And of course, former managing director of Nestle. After I was ND of Nestle, he became chairman of the company again for several years. And of course, he's also former chairman of many blue chip companies. GlaxoSmithKline, Lafarge, etc. Now, at 84, he says he has he says he has had enough, but I'm not sure if he has stopped had enough yet. But he's a senior friend, a good mentor, and so we are happy to always have you around us, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I think it is in place for me to give a brief introduction of what the center is all about. The center was established by the Senate of this university in the year 2017 It was conceived as one of the centers of excellence run by, at that time, the Research and Innovation Department of the university, but that department has since metamorphosed to become Research Management Office. It's no longer R&I Office. When we were putting it together, we simply called it R&I Office. But of course, with time, that office became Research Management Office. So the formation of the center relied on the established strength and distinction of the University of Lagos in the tenets of sustainable development, as well as in the practice of environmental management and planning in this country. As the progenitor to the center, anchored the presence of world-renowned scholars and experts of the subject matter in this university. We proudly say that University of Lagos is the only recognized center by the United Nations Environment Program and the Basel Convention institution particularly. I think that deserves a round of applause. Because the University of Lagos is the only recognized observer at any of the UN meetings of the Basel Convention. The general objectives and mandate of the center include providing capacity building for environmental management in Nigeria, training and production of expertise in environmental management to handle the implementation of policies on environmental safeguards, risk assessments, and disaster management issues, as well as research in donor-supported program-oriented courses in environmental management, establishing and running short-term training programs in order to educate and generate a sector workforce equipped to deliver the targets of sustainable development, and for conducting research on environmental and sustainable development issues, including natural resources management, remediation, sustainable urban development, etc. I want to say that this center, years ago, was the center that provided training for all staff of the Federal Ministry of Environment. At that time, it was called FEPA, Federal Environmental Protection Agency. And so everyone who was in environment in Nigeria had to come to this same guest house here to be trained before they could be certificated by the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. So the center has been responding to calls and invitations from the organized private sector, government ministries, departments and agencies, intergovernmental organizations, and international agencies to assist with training and production of expertise to handle the implementation of policies on environmental safeguards. So, among other projects currently going on at the center, CENHURD has been driving the University of Lagos JEF UNIDO Industrial Energy Performance and Resource Efficiency Cleaner Production Project. This is funded by UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and aims to accelerate the adoption of industrial energy efficiency and to improve enterprise in mainstreaming of ISO 5001 compliant energy management systems in the Nigerian system. This project is under the wider umbrella of the resource efficiency and cleaner production best practices and innovative approaches within selected small and medium and large industrial enterprises in Nigeria. The center, therefore, continues to play this role and accentuate it in coordinating available expertise and providing a vehicle for the production of needed human resources for public and private sectors in the fast expanding field of environment and sustainable development. Hence, the name of the center is Center for Environmental Human Resource Development, CENHURD. The board of the center is made up of renowned environmentalists, prominent members from academic and private sectors, and the center's team is currently led by no one else, by Professor Olusegun of the Department of Marine Sciences, and is ably assisted by Dr. Akim Abayomi of the Department of Chemistry as the Deputy Team Lead. The center has within its fold accomplished experts from the academia and industry who serve as resource persons and provide invaluable insights on environmental issues. The vision of the center is simple: serving as a center of excellence for capacity building in environmental management and sustainable development. In closing, Madam Vice Chancellor, I wish to appeal to all our distinguished guests present here today to be willing to support our modest effort at endowing this university and Nigeria and sustain the legacy that we are starting today. While today is not a fundraising event, I need to say that as from today, the team at the center will be connecting with you to solicit for your support and particularly partnership in achieving the goals and objectives of the center. As I conclude my address, Madam Vice Chancellor, it is very important to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who generously helped us to make this event a success. We do appreciate that you have a crowded schedule, but we sincerely thank you for sparing time to grace this auspicious event, and we pray for your safe trip back to your respective destinations. God bless you all.
Thank you. That was the opening remarks by distinguished Professor Babajide Alo, FAS, the board chairman for Center for Environmental Human Resource Development of University of Lagos. To speak to us this morning, the 13th Vice Chancellor of University of Lagos, Professor Folashade Tolulope Ogunshola, FAS, which is an acronym for Fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science, OON, Officer of the Order of Niger. And to put it into proper context, the first female Vice Chancellor to receive a national award.
Good morning. Yes, I've done it. On behalf of the CENHURD team, I'd like to welcome you all to this maiden lecture. But first of all, let me recognize properly the chairman of the occasion, Chief Olusegun Osunkeye, who has been a big supporter of the University of Lagos. We want to thank you, sir. He was also on the board of our of ULBS. He was the founding chairman who helped to birth that particular school. What I would also want to say is, he says he's going to rest, but I can assure you, sir, that's not something you want to do. You need to keep active. So we will keep working with you to keep you active. So you're not leaving us yet, sir. I'm going to align myself with the protocols already established, but I'd also want to thank the lecturer, Mr. Victor Imevbore, whom I'm meeting for the first time, but I happen to know his father, who I had known since I was a child. So I've told him that this is a meeting of families, and I'm sure we will continue to see him and get his support on this center. The Center for Environmental Human Resource Development, CENHURD, as was said, started in 2017, and they have been busy. But this is the first time they are coming here to showcase to all of us what they've been doing and to give us a flavor of their work. I was thinking through their goals and thinking through the issue of sustainable development, and thought, let me see how many of the sustainable development goals that they have, that they are involved with and that they will impact. And I could count, give me a second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at least 9. Zero hunger. We all know climate change is here and it's affecting a lot of things. It's affecting the whole, should I say, our whole existence. So they will affect zero hunger. They would affect good health and well-being. They would affect clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, climate action, life below the water, life on Earth, and from the very core of their mission, education. And I think we can stretch that, you know, to poverty alleviation, because if you're well educated and you have an impact and you have a goal, you will find something to do. So I want to congratulate you on the human development that you are carrying out in this very essential area. The University of Lagos has these centers of research because what we do is find solutions to the world's problems, starting from our own local environment. And one thing we can talk about is the fact that the whole environment is being polluted either from gasoline, from human waste, etc. And what they do has direct impact. What they're investigating is solutions to these. So I want to congratulate the center for what you've been doing since 2017. I want to congratulate you for the lecture today, Transcending Barriers to Environmental Mainstreaming in Nigeria, and to say that we're here. One of the things we're also doing is ensuring that what is required for us to develop this country is caught within our curricula, so that we're training people with not just for a course, but for action. And I think mainstreaming is something that we need to have all these mainstream. So I think I'm challenging the center that they now need to do the work to ensure that all this is mainstreamed in our curricula and that we're providing the manpower, even pre-service, for the country. So on that note, I want to thank you all for coming, and I hope that you will engage very freely with this center. And they have called on us to support them, not just in terms of funding, but also in terms of intellectual support. So I hope that coming out from here, we will also be supporting them. And I hope that we can send our students to work with your projects as interns, because this is the way to go. So on that note, I want to welcome you all again to CENHURD, to this maiden lecture, CENHURD, to this maiden lecture, and I hope we have a very invigorating time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Excellent delivery from my Vice Chancellor, Professor Folashade Tolulope Ogushola, FAS OON. Another round of applause for her. One thing I know for a fact is that this is the only institution you can access by air, our guest lecturer. So when next you're coming, you could decide to fly. We have a landing place in Unilag. You could decide to come via the road, and just a stone throw, you can come via the lagoon front. There's a jetty. We are walking, and the Vice Chancellor is saying, maybe when next you visit Unilag, you can access Unilag by tube. A round of applause for University of Lagos. The chairman of today's occasion, a lot has been said about him, but it's high time we listened to the boardroom guru. A round of applause for Chief Olusegun Osunkeye, Commander of the Order of Niger, Officer of the Order of the Federal Republic, and Chairman Osunkeye and Associates. I'm sorry, sir. Osunkeye and associate. Daddy, that thing you promised me, that should not deter you to still give me.
The chief host and the vice chancellor of this great university, Professor Folashade Ogunshola, officer of the Order of the Niger, and fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science, the deputy vice chancellors, both serving and former, principal officers of the university, both serving and former, our host, the chairman of the Center for Environmental Human Resource Development, CENHURD, the distinguished Professor Babajide Alo, the guest lecturer, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the chairman of the Center for Environmental Human Resource Management, distinguished Professor Babajide Alo, FAS, and the board members, well attired in their uniform. They have been selfish. I mean, they left out the vice chancellor. Can you imagine that? I thank you for inviting me to this maiden public lecture 2023 of the center. Looking around the distinguished audience, I figure that maybe one reason I have been invited to chair this event is to be a listening ear of the organized private sector. That is my constituency. I'm delighted to be here. I had the privilege this morning during a courtesy visit to the office of our chief host, the vice chancellor, to be given the visitor's book to sign. And I signed the visitor's book. One column says, the purpose of visiting. I said, or I wrote there, to chair an event and to learn. I have come here to learn. I am fascinated by the topic of this lecture, Transcending Barriers to Environmental Mainstreaming in Nigeria. The subject matter touches environmental sustainability, which affects all of us. It's a major issue in Nigeria and indeed humanity as a whole. Sustainability refers to the responsible use of environmental resources to meet present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Sustainability and corporate governance practices can enhance the success of business for the betterment of society at large. Naturally, I have to talk about business. Sustainability is your forte. Corporate governance is our own forte. So there's a link. Indeed, at a lecture last week, Thursday, organized by the Society of Corporate Governance Nigeria, of which I am a fellow and a past president. That was a lecture last week. And our lecturer, Mr. Isaac Orolubagbe, said, and I quote him now, while shareholder value is an important consideration for a company, Modern governance emphasizes the need to balance it with societal impact and sustainable practices. Boards are increasingly recognizing the importance of environmental, social, and governance factors in long-term value creation. This involves integrating ESG, that's environmental, social, and governance, consideration into decision-making processes, managing risks and opportunities related to sustainability, and ensuring that the company operates in a socially and environmentally responsible manner, unquote. So, our chief host, you can see the synergy between environmental sustainability and corporate governance. Indeed, last week, during discussion, we are already thinking of ESG being a part of the annual report of companies going forward in Nigeria. And I think this is where the intellectual support canvassed by the Vice Chancellor comes in. As time goes on, there will be a convergence and discussion between CENHURD and the Society for Corporate Governance Nigeria. In my opinion, environmental sustainability is to be integrated with sound corporate governance. And the Center for Environmental Human Resource Development will have a vital role to play. This maiden lecture is a step in the right direction, and the topic is well chosen. And I'm sure we shall all be enlightened as we listen with rapt attention to the distinguished guest lecturer, Mr. Victor Imevbore. I hope that's the correct pronunciation. Thank you. Our chief host, I've been coming to this university for over 40 years. And it's always a pleasure to be here. Every time I come, I learn from the citadel of learning. So this morning, I will listen with rapt attention and learn from the wise words of the guest speaker. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Like an Oliver Twist, who likes to ask for more. Another round of applause for Chief Olusegun Osunkeye, the chairman of today's occasion. The years he's been coming to the University of First Choice and the nation's pride is even older than yours truly. Shows a lot. Can I say that this event is live on YouTube, courtesy of the amazing team of the communication unit led by Alaja Adejoke Alaga and the team. We also have on Zoom this event from the CITS, the Center for Information Technology Systems. But because of optic reasons, I will crave the indulgence of those who are sitting sparsely to please move forward so that they can be properly captured. No fear. After the lecture, we will not be told to write any examination. Please, we can move forward, please. Thank you. For goodwill message, we have the Director, Research, Management Office of the University of Lagos here, Professor Timothy Nobi. Can we please give him a round of applause as he steps forward to take goodwill message?
Thank you so much. The Vice Chancellor, who just stepped out, hoping that she could still hear me, the chairman of this occasion, the chairman of the board of CENHURD, all other protocol duly observed. The critical role of the environment for human existence cannot be overemphasized. Sadly, the world today is a global village. And unfortunately, pollution and epidemic respect no international boundary. The COVID-19 that started in China, we all saw the way it spread across the world within weeks. Man activities has caused a lot of damage to the environment. Niger Delta is right a big challenge for us as a nation. A visit to Niger Delta will see the way nature is being destroyed through land and water pollution because of exploration of oil in the last few decades. Deforestation in Southwest, Zamfara State, and some other parts of Nigeria today, they are currently being raped because of the solid minerals. And lithium, which is the current gold or oil that is used for the production of battery, is found in our country in large quantity, and we see a lot of illegal mining and destruction of the ecosystem. The rise in sea level in Lagos is a major concern too. A 1 meter rise in sea level in Lagos will keep 30% of Lagos underwater. A rise in sea level of 2 meters in Lagos will keep 50% of Lagos underwater. And a 3 meter rise in sea level of our Atlantic Ocean will keep 70% of Lagos under sea level. Efforts have been made in the past to mitigate it. Up to the last effort of establishing of the Lagos Eco-Atlantic City, which appears to be a permanent solution to the flooding of the risk of getting Victoria Island underwater. But a visit to that corridor, Lekki, the Pan-African University, Crown Estate, will tell us that you can only solve a problem, water will find its level. You can only solve a problem in one corridor and create the problem in another corridor. The behind of Crown Estate today, every day they struggle with water erosion. These are issues that are confronting us. Our fathers lived a natural life. They were able to live, they were able to practice their science and their system in a manner that have very little destructive effect on the environment. And therefore, the rise in sea in Atlantic Ocean, the question is that the answer we've been getting from the global north is that it's a result of the climate change, the global warming and the climate change, and the melting of ice in the Atlantic region. But we as a center or as a university, do we need to just settle for that? Or we need to challenge it and do further research on what is causing rise in sea level that is putting Lagos and the coastal part of Nigeria at risk? Because nature has its own way of regulating itself. Nature has its own way of regulating itself. There are scientific reports that show that River Niger and River Benue, they discharge tons, millions of tons of sand into the Atlantic every year. Nobody knows it, but that happens. But the mining of sand in Lagos and creation of oil in the Atlantic, in the lagoon, deny the Atlantic Ocean of that natural resource of sand. That led to a point that we now have to throw sand into the Atlantic, to the Bar Beach, because we've mined our lagoon, but nobody is thinking in that direction. I believe that as researchers and custodians, as researchers into environment, we need that. We need to actually research into authentic traditional knowledge. It's been proved in Mali that the Sasa irrigation system that sustained Mali for thousands of years proved to be more efficient than the millions of dollars provided by World Bank to build dam for irrigation. These are traditional methods of living and working in the environment. In the western part of Nigeria, we have traditional burying of pots to harvest rainwater. We want to say that the building materials that we were using in the past were building materials that were eco-friendly. I want to appreciate CENHURD for this invitation to give the goodwill, and I want to appreciate the good work they were doing there. CENHURD happened to be one of the 5 best centers in the university, and I pray that the future of the center is bright. There will be more wings, and there will be research that will be directed to solving African problems. Thank you so much. The center wish you a very fruitful deliberation and a very fruitful lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Timothy Nubi, Director, Research Management Office of University of Lagos. The Vice Chancellor had to attend to other matters, but she places so much priority on this event. That was why she blessed us with her presence. And when she was leaving, she decided to hand things over to the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development Services, Professor Ayodele Victoria Shenwa. So please, ma, I respectfully invite you, ma, to please step up. Thank you, ma. Please, a round of applause for her. We are still awaiting the arrival of our guest lecturer. She will definitely join us, but in absentia, I just want us to appreciate Mrs. Miriam Imevbore. A round of applause for her. Unfortunately, the father of the guest lecturer could not make it. I thought I was going to see him, Professor Anthony Malomo Imevbore, the chairman of Environmental Resources Managers Limited, who is the pro-chancellor of Joseph Ayodele Babalola University, Jabu. A round of applause for the father of the guest lecturer. for raising a wonderful child. When I grow up, sir, I want to be like you. Before I call on Dr. Folashade Adegbite to give us citation of the guest lecturer, there was a question posed to me by an English teacher, and I want you all to be the judge. She asked me, said, Sheun, Mercy swept the whole compound. What type of sentence is that? And I answered my teacher by saying, it's a compound sentence. Over to you, Dr. Folashade Adegbite. Was I right or wrong? A round of applause for Dr. Folashade Adegbite as she comes out to take the citation of our guest lecturer.
Good afternoon, dear all. Madam Vice Chancellor, ably represented by, she's my mentor, Professor Ashenua. So permit me to just mention, a round of applause for her. Let me align myself with the existing protocol so that we can move straight to the lecture, since we are all eagerly waiting for it. I'll call on our guest lecturer, Mr. Victor Chioze Imevbore. Can you please Oh, it's a typographic. Okay. All right. Can you please be on your feet so as please a round of applause for him. Mr. Victor Chioze Imevbore is the Managing Director of Environmental Resources Management Limited, ERML, one of the foremost environmental, social, and governance, ESG, sustainable development consulting and management firms in Nigeria today. Mr. Imevbore holds a BSc in Petroleum Engineering from the University of Ibadan and an MSc in Geographical Information System from University of London. He is a fellow of the Nigerian Environmental Society, NES, its immediate past interim national president. He is a fellow of the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment, UK, and a chartered environmentalist of the UK Society of the Environment. He is also a member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, NSE, and the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, that is COREN. Mr. Imevbore is currently sits on the board of the Center for Environmental, Human Resource and Development, CENHURD, of the University of Lagos and several other companies. He has managed ERML since 1996, soon after the company was established. From its humble beginnings in 1996 with only one support staff, it successfully grew the company's stature and size to one of the most admired sustainability consulting firms in Nigeria. By 2002, ERML was well known in Nigeria and internationally as a provider of quality environmental services. Although an engineer by training, Mr. Imevbore has exhibited a natural flair for the multi- and interdisciplinary field of sustainability. He has an enviable reputation as one of the best-rounded sustainable development practitioners in Nigeria and demonstrates not only knowledge of pure science application of environmental management of industrial activities, but also the social, cultural, and economic dimensions. He regularly manages large interdisciplinary expert teams on environmental/sustainability-related studies. Mr. Imevbore is an expert witness on nothing environmental issues and a respected consultant to several companies, state governments, Nigeria regulatory agencies, the World Bank, International Finance Corporation, IFC, UN agencies, and Nigeria and international financial institutions. He is the lead author of over 120 technical reports and papers, including the groundbreaking Niger Delta Human Development Report prepared by UNDP in 2006. A round of applause for him. Okay. Over the last 20 years, Mr. Imevbore has helped steer environmental regulations in Nigeria oil and gas industry and the sustainability practice in Nigeria in general. His contributions in this area are well known and largely associated with his engineering background and deep knowledge of the Niger Delta environment. In recognition of his scientific achievements, Mr. Imevbore received the Distinguished Scientist Award from the Faculty of Science of the respected Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife in 2004. While the Environment magazine honored him as one of those who shaped the environment in 2008. In 2022, he was listed among the top 10 environmentalists in Nigeria. Please, let's clap. If you're clapping, let's clap properly. All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Imevbore is married with a daughter and twin sons. Yeah, that's a big achievement also. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Imevbore.
Thank you very much for healing me. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not very good with protocols, but I will try. Professor Allo always makes fun of me that he says that I'm riotous. But as you can see, I'm very compliant. Prof, I promise not to be riotous today. Let me start by congratulating the Vice Chancellor, Professor Folashade Ogushola, she's not here, for attending this. I also greet the principal staff of the university that are here, my seniors in the environment space, who it took me a long time before they finally accepted me. But I think it was training. I was battered by many of them. Pastor Bisi Oloyo, I greet you. It's a distinct honor for me to be here to give this maiden lecture of the revamped CENHURD, Center for Environmental, Human and Resource Development. I'm particularly excited because listening to those who spoke earlier, I can begin to see that they are putting their money where their mouth is. Well, the first thing is the Vice Chancellor came in spite of her busy schedule. That's not a small thing. That shows leadership and commitment from the top to sustainability issues. The next thing, which was exciting, I saw a number of women folk among the principal staff of the university. That is an important aspect of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Again, I congratulate the university. The third observation, as I was leaving the Vice Chancellor's office, I saw trash cans where they were doing waste segregation. And I'm like, oh, this is here. Again, this is leading by example. I congratulate the university on this. You know. In addition, I heard her say a few things that resonate with me. For too long, I have been of the opinion that the academia in Nigeria has not been sufficiently relevant to the development of the country. In this country, we have not had many professors that have, with all due respect to the Ojogbons that are here, we have not had many professors that have basically invented this, invented that, and typically, when they're coming up with development plans for the country, even if the professors and the academicians and intellectuals are involved, when it comes to their implementation, we do not see them, which shows that over time we have had a very, very clear a separation, right, disconnect, I would call it, between the academia and the country in general. But from what I heard the Vice Chancellor say, right, they are focusing more on the development of the country and research. Again, on this note, I congratulate the university. I'm also particularly honored to meet for the first time the octogenarian, Chief Osunkeye. I have never met him. We've heard about him. His name has been, ever since I was a small boy, we've known him as, the top people, industry. But I can see he's not tired. More importantly, he's demonstrating the all-valuable link between entrepreneurship, between the companies, the corporate world, and the academia. I learned that he has been part of the board of certain centers in the university and on the senate of the university. I would say congratulations, sir. I'm most honored to meet you. And thank you for accepting to chair this occasion. All other protocols duly observed. Those that have come because they were invited and because I'm here, I say thank you very much. And I'm going to go very soon into my lecture. Permit me, if I say things that are a little bit uncomfortable, these are some of the things that I have convictions about. But I believe that they are important for us to move forward as a country. I don't know if the slides are showing now. Yeah, but those on the high table may not, they're not showing on this screen. I did. Oh, I see. Okay. It's sharing now. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So let me start by thanking again the Vice Chancellor, Professor Folashade Ogushola, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Management Services, Professor Olusegun, I call him my senior brother in the industry, and the Chairman of the Board of the University Center for Environmental, Human Resource and Development, distinguished Professor Babaji Diallo. There's somebody here who calls him the head of the gang. I will not say more than that. Yes, for giving me the honor to deliver this maiden lecture of the revamped CENHURD. I also congratulate once again the university for keeping the dream alive, the dream that led to the establishment of the center as far back as 21 years ago while it was still with FEPA and before it was moved to the University of Lagos. I have chosen to speak about how to overcome barriers to environmental mainstreaming, primarily because of its significance to sustainable development. So what is environmental mainstreaming? We have various definitions. Some call it an interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary endeavor, normalizing an idea from one policy domain into decision making, making things routine. English dictionary tells us that it is the process to start to consider something normal, that is everyday. It's the informed inclusion of relevant environmental concerns into the decisions of institutions that drive national, local, and sectoral development policy, rules, plans, investment. These are all definitions. But what are the key words from this? Number one is normal. The second one, institutions. Third one, policy. Fourth one, decision making. Another critical one, interdisciplinary. And then we're looking at the long term. So environmental mainstreaming, in short, is making sure that sustainability considerations are factored into and part of our normal day-to-day human endeavors, just like taking your bath, driving, going to school, and so on and so forth. So it's about the effectiveness or otherwise of environmental governance, in which case it requires input from multi-actors that impact the environment. We all take from the environment, which is our commons. But sometimes we don't remember that if that environment is not taken care of, we will have nothing to take from it. So environmental mainstreaming includes policy integration, policy law and regulation implementation, private sector action, and again, when I look at Chief, I'm excited, community action, and individual action. You all have an individual role to play. So this paper outlines the imperatives for and the major barriers to environmental mainstreaming in Nigeria. It also prefers recommendations. We're not going to leave it at just saying these are the problems. We'll come up with a few recommendations. They're in two categories. The first category is recommendations for Nigeria as a whole, because we cannot remove the center from the Nigerian situation, and of course specific recommendations for CENHURD. People will ask, why have you chosen to talk about environmental mainstreaming? Like I said, it's critical to sustainable development. But there are some specific reasons. The first one, we must remind ourselves that the earth is threatened. We must always remember that. The second one, Nigeria is in a precarious situation. I don't know whether the plumber, the vulcanizer, whether the policeman directing traffic, whether students, whether even all lecturers, everybody fully understands what we mean by Nigeria is in a precarious situation. We will talk about that. The third reason, and again I was delighted to hear the Vice Chancellor talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, is that we may miss targets, the SDG targets. And finally, environmental mainstreaming helps to reduce inequality and poverty. So I'll take them one by one. These are some statistics that basically tell us that in spite of recognizing, right, several years ago when the Brundtland report was issued and when the definition of sustainability or sustainable development was coined, that is over how many years ago? Well over 30 years ago. We still have issues. 75% of the terrestrial environment is severely altered by human action. 66% of the marine environment are severely altered. We have a 47% decline in global indicators of ecosystem versus the estimated natural baselines. Greater than 1 million species are threatened with extinction, many within the decades time frame, just decades. Of course, someone talked about the temperature rise or climate change. We have temperature increase compared to pre-industrial levels. We have 3 millimeters annual average global sea level rise over the past 2 decades. What about our consumption patterns? We have plus or minus 60 billion tons of renewable energy and non-renewable energy resources extracted annually. About 15% increase in global per capita consumption since 1980. Greater than 85% of our wetlands that were present in the 1700s have been lost. This is even 3 times faster than we are losing forests. And bear in mind that Nigeria is the deforestation capital of the world. We still have up to 1 billion people that rely on wood fuel for energy sources. What about the social dimensions? I'll just mention a few. We have 23% of global land areas that have reduced productivity due to degradation. The fallow systems that existed before and all that are no longer being respected. We have a 105% increase in human population. I believe by this year we're 8 billion, right? And at the rate we are going, I don't know how many we are going to be. Is there enough space for everybody? Food for thought. We have 75% of global food crop types that rely on animal pollination. But yet, as much as $577 billion worth of output is at risk because pollination is threatened. Over 11% of the world population is undernourished. I wouldn't talk about the percent that is in Nigeria. Let's now look at Nigeria. Nigeria is in a precarious situation. We know what our challenges are. Desertification in the north, the alarming rate of deforestation nationwide. I mentioned earlier that Nigeria is the deforestation capital of the world. We have the statistics. Air pollution, particularly in the cities and the oil-rich Niger Delta. Pollution of our inland water bodies with sewage, grey water, industrial effluent, oil spills in the Niger Delta, and of course boat traffic. We also have the problem of overfishing. A lot of people don't even realize that our marine waters are being overfished, mostly by rogue fishing vessels, and nobody is doing anything. We have invasion of exotic species. Gully erosion is a problem in the southeast of Nigeria. Those that are from the southeast will tell you what they're experiencing. Coastal erosion along sections of our coastline. Then every day we go out, plastic and styrofoam pollution. Everywhere we go, everywhere we go. You can't hide from it. Even as you are approaching Banana Island, which is the billionaires, you will see plastic and styrofoam. We also have generally poor management of our solid wastes. And then extreme weather events are now coming on top of all these problems. We've seen significant increases in temperature. We've seen, episodic extreme rainfall situations. Some people are still arguing as to whether or not we have evidence of climate change in Nigeria. Somebody has come and he has spoken about it, right? So I will leave that. One other big problem is that Nigeria is among the most vulnerable countries suffering from ecological risk and low resilience. And then to compound it all, we are still having high population growth rates. How are we going to deal with all these issues? Ecological risk is affecting life expectancy, and then the security issues are not helping matters either. There is a lot of conflict, but interestingly, the conflict is caused to a large extent, right, by environmental issues. It's all about land. Desertification, as an example, and arable land, land for grazing and all that, are part of the reasons for conflict. I always like to put pictures, because they say pictures say 1,000 things. These are pictures on desertification. On the left side of this one, the right side is gully erosion. The left side of this other slide, this is Lagos, so the top one where you see that vehicle. So it's not far from you. While the other one is in the Niger Delta. The top one is also in the Niger Delta. The palm you see there is Nipa palm, an exotic species that was introduced to this country and is very aggressive, taking over areas where you used to have mangrove. Very, very aggressive. Unfortunately, the value that you get from ecosystem services that you can get from Nipa palm are nowhere close to what you get from mangrove. Coastal erosion, the top left, that's Niger Delta. The bottom left, that is Lagos. You can see that building had to be abandoned. Obviously, it was built there at a time when the coastline was several kilometers into the sea. Then, of course, the one on the right, these are sites that we all see every day, everywhere we go. Everywhere we go. This is about deforestation and oil spill in the Niger Delta. Now, if you look at the top right picture there, you will notice the depth to which the oil has gone. And I'll talk about this in a little bit. The other one shows oil all over the water, but more importantly, you can see how a lot of mangrove, hectares, have all died. Then air pollution. Till tomorrow, we are still flaring gas. Then there's the other one called Po fire. I don't know how many people know what Po fire is here. Po fire basically is the local name for illegal refining activities, which have created a major problem in Port Harcourt. But at the same time, we also have issues in Lagos. The bottom left is Lagos. You can see that the air is not clean. And then finally, effluent pollution. So once again, I'm glad that Chief is here. This effluent pollution picture is of, I will not mention the company's name, right, in a certain part of Nigeria. This map has been put up to give you an idea of the parts of the Niger Delta that have similar or even more oil pollution scale compared to Ogoni. Everybody knows of the Ogoni. Ogoni is well celebrated. But if you look at this map, you will see that what you have in Ogoni is replicated in so many other parts of the Niger Delta. The third reason, like I said, we may miss sustainable development targets. As we know, these SDGs are a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. There are 17 targets. In 2019, Nigeria was assessed. We ranked 139 out of 163. We were better than only 24 countries when you look at all of the SDGs. Okay. Let us look at how we performed. SDG 1, 11, and 15. In 2019, the situation was worsening. SDG 2, 9, 3, 14, 7, 16, 8, and 17, we were stagnating, no progress. On gender equality, clean water and sanitation, we made some moderate progress. We were on target on 2. Let us clap for ourselves. So. That is not all bleak. But I tell you what, when you look at the progress on climate action, from my own analysis, was primarily because the period that was evaluated, oil and gas activities were significantly reduced. And so when they are not producing oil, the associated gas was not being flared. Let us see what will happen by the time they open up all the gas wells. The government has told us that by 2024, Nigeria should be producing its OPEC quota of 1.7 million barrels. By that time, we should reevaluate where we are on climate action. Sadly, on education and inequalities, which are very key indices, there is no data, which is one of the things that I'll be talking about today. In 2021, what happened? This tells us how we progressed. Things got worse in 2021 from 2019. Nigeria was ranked 160 out of 165 countries. We're better than only Liberia, Chad, Somalia, Central African Republic, Southern Sudan. That is not good at all. For those of us who grew up in my time and before my time, to be put in the same category as these countries, in fact, but that is where we are. This is the reality. Again, for some of these indices, there is no data. Let us look at 2023. Slightly better, but only 20 countries that we are better than. This is not good at all. The other reason why environmental mainstreaming is critical is that it reduces poverty and inequalities. The poverty environment nexus has been established, and it's echoed by the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which have determined that getting rid of extreme poverty, it's the #1 sustainable development goal. As some of you would know, 4 out of every 10 Nigerians were multidimensionally poor in 2018 and 2019. That means nearly 50% of our population are poor people. Honestly, I'm scared to think of what it may be today. The poorest Nigerians face the greatest climate risks. You know, I want to put this in perspective so you can understand. This recent increase in the price of petrol, right? There are a group of people who can afford it, but some common trend now with a lot of corporate entities is asking their staff to come to work 2 or 3 times at most a week. Many of them are saying work from home, because the reality is that Nigerians cannot afford it. There's an increase in the poverty gap that significantly contributes to intensifying environmental degradation in sub-Saharan Africa. And this is largely because the livelihoods of a lot of sub-Saharan people are tied to the natural environment that they are destroying. So this environment is disproportionately important to poor nations compared to the OECD nations. Let's take Singapore as an example. How much land does Singapore have? It's a small place, but the Singapore passport, Singapore GDP, right? Singapore passport was rated #1 in the world at one time. Singapore GDP, right, is one of the highest in the world because they are not heavily dependent, like we are, on our natural environment, which unfortunately we're also destroying. So I now want to go into the barriers to environmental mainstreaming. We have talked about why environmental mainstreaming is important, but what are the barriers? The first one is treating environment as an externality. There is also poor communication among our stakeholders. There is poor awareness, and we continue to suffer from lack of data. Environmental practitioners are poorly remunerated. That's an important thing. We have poor governance and weak institutions, and there's almost no environmental justice in this country. Almost none. I'll talk about each one. What is an externality? You can call it a positive or negative outcome of a given economic activity that affects a third party that is not directly related to that activity. As an example, you go to a cornfield, you take your corn and go. You don't care. The other person comes, takes his corn and goes. He doesn't care. The cost that a corporation can push on to another person, group, or entity, this whole externality concept underpins what we call the tragedy of the commons. That's a situation in which individuals with access to the public resource or the commons, water, soil, forests, and so on and so forth, they act purely in their own interest and deplete the resource. What is the consequence? Environmental protection and management are treated as secondary rather than a goal as equally important as development activities. The second barrier is that there is poor communication among key stakeholders. A lot of the institutions that deal with environmental issues, they don't communicate. I can talk about a few in Nigeria. Finance dominates development discussions and decisions, and only about 1% of our national budgets is spent on the environment. Yet, everybody relies on the environment. You need the environment even to bury the dead. There are cases of ineffectual or non-existent collaboration on environmental issues. I'll mention just 2 examples. I know of the Nigerian Inland Waterways that gives permits and approvals for developments without the Federal Ministry of Environment approval or permit. We have been called into a number of cases. NIWA has its enabling law to give permit and all that. You want to do something on the waterways, you go to NIWA, it gives you the approval without taking into consideration the environmental implications. Many of us also know about the duplication in the EIA process that existed between the Federal Ministry of Environment and the defunct Department of Petroleum Resources. We do know that the PIA is trying to address that now, but it will interest some of you to know that there are people that are fighting to ensure that they continue to carry on where the oil companies serve 2 masters. Many ministries, departments, and agencies also pursue projects without carrying out EIAs. And the Ministry of Environment that is responsible for implementing the EIA Act is unable to stop them, sanction them, or do anything about it. If you look at the national budgets, and I took time to study this, you will find out that there are many places where environment comes up. Very many places. But unfortunately, the actors and those that are implementing these various and individual environment-related initiatives, they are not communicating. Niger Delta is another example. NDDC has been there for so many years. As a matter of fact, I don't want to go into the Niger Delta situation because that one is so sad. Since the 1950s, we've had one intervention after the other on the Niger Delta. In spite of that, the place remains underdeveloped. in spite of $23 billion that was pumped in between 1999, $23 billion, by the way, and 2013, the Niger Delta is still underdeveloped. In spite of the money that was given to the states as derivation, NDDC takes money from the oil companies. Niger Delta Ministry come out there. In spite of all of that, big problem. The other reason, or the other barrier I need to talk about, is poor environmental awareness and lack of data. A lot of people in developing countries, including Nigeria, do not appreciate how their actions or inactions impact the environment. They have absolutely no idea. Poor governance and stakeholder engagement remain greatest challenges to climate resilience in this country. Increased poverty, as we have experienced in Nigeria over the past 8 years, suggests what we call lower environmental awareness. The bottom line is this: when there is poverty, there is a direct correlation with poor or low environmental awareness. The other issue is critical data for global, regional, and national development policy making are still lacking in many developing countries, including Nigeria. And the poorest countries do not have access to data. As you can see, I was talking about the SDGs. 2 critical SDGs: education, inequalities. Nigeria has no data, the giant of Africa. Environmental related data are not readily available. We have them in various disparate locations, right? But collation is a big, big issue. In addition, we do know that a lot of primary data is being collected from EIAs that have been carried out over the years. This primary data is not readily available. At least, I have been carrying out EIAs for close to 30 years. Professor Allah sitting here, maybe you can say ×2, right? Where are all those data sets? And these EIAs typically have primary data collected. But I must caution, a lot of the data in the EIAs carried out in recent times, unfortunately, are not reliable. Perhaps the most worrying indicator of environment as an externality in Nigeria is that environmental practitioners are poorly remunerated. I carried out an analysis in 2017, which shows that the highest paid Nigerian environmental practitioner earns 90% less than an engineering manager employed in an oil and gas producing company. 85% less than those with similar years of qualification in oil service companies. The difference is even more when you compare them to bankers and some lawyers with the same number of years post-qualification. An online portal puts the salary range of environmental practitioners between 34,000 and 179,000 per month. This was about 2 years ago. So the sustainability profession is growing worldwide. I heard Chief talk about ESG, environmental, social, and governance, which is where a lot of people will be going into. Sustainability is an issue. Sustainable development is a buzzword. But are we putting money where our mouth is? The specialists we need in this multi- and interdisciplinary field, are they being sufficiently incentivized? So the consequence of this is that the best brains leave the profession. Somebody once said one of the tragedies of Nigeria is that we train people and the best brains get poached and are working in other parts of the world. I do know a Nigerian company that has gone to set up in Canada. It's a Nigerian company, but it went to set up in Canada because its business is heavily dependent on IT professionals. And they realized that most of the IT professionals are now moving to Canada. So the guy went to set up a company, his office there, so that he can work with them. It's the same thing that we are facing in the environmental practice. If we do not sufficiently incentivize it, we are not going to have the right people there. And we will continue with this cycle and culture of mediocrity that has come to be the hallmark of environmental practice. One of the reasons, of course, is that it was not, before now, a regulated profession, like lawyers, Nigerian Bar Association, architects, medicine, accounting, and all that. Another reason is that it's very multi and interdisciplinary in nature. So you need people from everywhere. But I have some good news for you. After many years of battling, fighting, finally the act to establish the Institute of Environmental Practitioners of Nigeria has been passed into law. It was recently signed on the last working day of the past president. This shows you the extent to which we were fighting and pushing and all that. But I think that that's a good and encouraging start for the practice. With the Institute, we should now be able to start a process of regulating and certifying people that work in this space. And we should start changing the trajectory of environmental practice. For so many years, you want to carry out an environmental study in Nigeria, sponsored by an international company, sponsored by an international financial institution. They call you, even Professor Alo with his many years, they say, which international consultant or firm are you working with? It gets to a point where if I'm in a meeting and that is mentioned, I immediately switch off. But I tell you what, they have their reasons to do that. Hopefully with this act, we shall begin to change things around. We also have poor governance and weak institutions. You cannot expect good environmental governance if governance in the country in general is bad. Everywhere you turn, we have poor governance. Researchers vehemently agree on the failure of governance in Nigeria. They have varying suggested but converging reasons for failure of governance. We have systemic challenges such as maintaining law and order. You know, I laugh sometimes when you listen to some of the news bits and you wonder, you know, what is happening. We have ceded the sovereignty of the country to small groups in certain areas. Somebody comes out and says that he was called to come and help to safeguard Abuja-Kaduna highway. What happened to the police? What happened to the military? A civilian comes out and is giving instruction to generals about how to take care of our oil installations. What are we talking about? This is purely failure of governance. A female police officer is interviewed and says to a journalist, she has not been paid for several years, and as a result, she's prostituting. Prostitution is a crime in Nigeria, as far as I know. But a female police officer is telling a journalist that this is what she's doing to survive. Governance has failed woefully in this country, and we must obviously draw our attention to it, otherwise we are wasting our time. Environmental governance also requires action in governance in general. Nigeria ranks low on the world governance indicators, lower than the rest of sub-Saharan Africa. We're in the 10th to 25th percentile. This just shows you some of the governance scores. The indicators they use are voice and accountability, political stability and absence of violence, government effectiveness, regulatory quality, rule of law, control of corruption. On the left side of your screen, you can see the sub-Saharan Africa average. On the right side of the screen, that is Nigeria for you. We are not doing well at all. We are not doing well at all. Giant of Africa. We also have weak environmental justice. What is environmental justice? It's defined as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people regardless of race, color, national origin, or income with respect to development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. I believe there are some lawyers here. I heard somebody from Faculty of Law. Okay, good. Some researchers suggest that justiciability is the problem when they look at the Constitution. Indeed, there are some issues with our Constitution as far as environmental issues are concerned. It's not adequately addressed, right? But some other legal scholars argue that the environmental rights of citizens are as important as the fundamental human rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution. And so, we should not use the excuse of the absence of justiciability or the lack of justiciability of environmental issues to say that we are not going to try and regulate environmental violations in the country. Yes, let us reassess the justiciability as we are amending our Constitution. Let it be explicit, let's be clear. But until that is done, we do have laws in the country. We have environmental laws in the country that we can work with. How are we handling those laws? What are we doing with them? The truth is that justice is difficult because some of these laws are lax. Our judiciary is not independent. And in some cases, they lack the will to enforce compliance and legal provisions. In general, not only on environmental issues. The common law rules are affected by proof of causation and procurement of expert witnesses. They make it difficult for claimants to secure justice. They are also compounded by restive judicial interpretation of extant legislation. Look, the truth is this: if you don't understand environmental law, it's expected that you are not going to interpret it properly. It's that simple. You have to understand it. You know, the Niger Delta is probably the most cited in literature as far as environmental justice issues are concerned, right? But in spite of that, we have many areas, like I mentioned, that are still significantly polluted, like the Ogoni land. Another key issue is that environmental law is a relatively new branch of law and may still not be offered in some universities, even though the universities have law faculties. That is a major problem. So many of the judges who sit in courts today did not do environmental law in school. They did not. So how are you going to get environmental justice? So those are the barriers. I will now try to put forward pathways to environmental mainstreaming. The journey seems long, tortuous, and daunting, but we should not be deterred. Let's stay the course. Environment is Mother Earth. We all need the environment. You know, sometimes I look at people, you know, it is not the environment that needs you. You are the one who needs the environment. When you are destroying it and all that, you better bear that in mind. So pursuing environmental mainstreaming, in my opinion, is one of the main reasons that the Center for Environmental and Human Resource Development was established several years ago. So like I mentioned earlier, I have recommendations in two areas. General recommendations: we should improve governance. We cannot keep quiet. Yes, I'm a practitioner. Yes, I'm focused on environmental issues. So I'm not going to talk about governance as it affects other things. There is governance in your home. There is governance in your classroom. There is governance in your center. There is governance in your department. We need to pursue environmental justice. We need to improve collaboration and funding, apply global standards and local knowledge. I was excited to hear somebody talk about traditional knowledge earlier on. We should try and mainstream environmental awareness and education, and then reward and incentivize sustainability. Let me talk about them a bit. It's time to shun impunity. We have to shun impunity. There's too much impunity in the polity. People driving along one way, people throwing things away, people disregarding rules and regulations across board. Dare to be different. The reality is this: if you seek change, you have to be the change that you seek. It has to start with you. The governed also have a role to play. Nigerians hail, worship Koto, right? And are sycophants. to government officials. It's too much. And this basically feeds tyranny. A government official basically is appointed or is there to serve you. We have various tools that are provided to improve our transparency. And I challenge CENHURD and the University of Lagos to lead by example in terms of transparency. Let people see that the way you conduct your affairs in the university are transparent. Nobody can come and hang some story of sexual harassment or unfairness in marks and so on and so forth on the university. Let it start with you. We should boldly and support meritocracy. There's nothing wrong with affirmative action. I don't have a problem with it. But what we are suffering now is not an issue of affirmative action. No. Meritocracy has been thrown out of the window. How are you going to develop in the absence of meritocracy? We also need to educate our youth to inculcate the right political mindset and attitude. Honestly, I talk to a lot of people, young people, and I ask them, would you like to go and work in government? They say yes, so. If I'm appointed, I will take it. So I try to ask them, why would you take it? That is when it gets interesting. Well, I mean, I'm qualified. Is it just because you are qualified? They start to go around, go around, go around. Those that are forthcoming, those that are, unabashed about them, if I go into government, I will make it. Is that what it's supposed to be? We should also work on our national policy on population. That is basically a big keg of gunpowder. If we don't curb our population, right, we're in big trouble. And I look at all of you in the face. It starts with you. I don't know how many kids you have. I don't know how many kids you plan to have. I don't know how many kids your uncle, your auntie, or whatever has, but it is time to look squarely at the population issue. On this note on governance, remember the saying that evil triumphs because good men do not speak up. And I say to people, anytime you meet a government official that is a big man in his own right, and he says to you, do you know who I am? Answer him. Tell him, yes, I know who you are. You're a government official. You work for me. I've talked about addressing justiciability in our Constitution, and those who may be involved in constitutional amendment, justice reform, and all that, this is something they can look at. Like I said, in the meantime, let's work with what we have. We need to develop standard environmental law curriculums for law students, the university, and the law school. We need to educate our judges. And recently, I was having a conversation with a very senior advocate of Nigeria. And when I brought this topic up, he actually said to me, and Prof, I want to present this to you. He said, can you guys come up with a curriculum for our judges? Can you guys help us to train our judges? He says, we cannot be the ones to do it, but if it comes from your center, that it will be well embraced. He now went on to call one of the senior lawyers that was now a magistrate, right? A senior magistrate or something in Federal High Court or judge. And he came back to me and said, the man has accepted, right, that not only we will train lawyers, we should help them develop a judge's guide for environmental justice in Nigeria. So this is a challenge that I'm throwing to CENHURD. That's something we need to work with. The other thing is that I don't know how many times, if at all, we have heard of sanctions for environmental violations. The one that we really know about is maybe the cocoa time or the oil industry. We all know that the oil industry one is a different thing. But sanctions for day-to-day environmental violations, there are none. You do hear about sanctions for people that steal, sanctions for people that have other violations. But for environmental violations, no. Until you publicize and make these things public, let people know that indeed there are consequences, we will not be able to deter environmental violations. Collaboration is key. Our regulatory agencies need to be encouraged. All over the world, there are overlaps in regulations. It's not only in Nigeria. But what they've done in most parts of the world is to come up with a memorandum of understanding, right, that will enable them work together as a team. Governance is a joint responsibility. As a matter of fact, I think a regulator that operates on the command and control style has gotten it completely wrong. The governed also have a role to play. Governance is for all people. Citizens have a role to play in governance. And it's a continuing process. We also need to spend more on projects and programs rather than recurrent budget. When you go and examine Nigeria's budget, let me focus on the environment budget. Over 50% is on allowances, salary, this one and that. So what goes into programs that will change the environment? Data, data, data. That's another critical thing. You cannot change what you do not measure. You cannot improve upon what you do not measure. But here we have a problem with data. It's time to establish a well-designed national environmental repository, or repositories. We can decide that repository for forests is somewhere, repository for soils is somewhere, repositories for the marine environment is somewhere. We have a lot of data at various locations. Let's put this data together and start establishing these repositories so that people can rely on them. And these repositories should run on geographical information systems, which are now critical. And in fact, these are fundamental and used everywhere in the world where environmental and social issues are discussed. GIS, as we know, helps to visualize, helps to analyze spatial data, and you can track and manage these databases. We also need to apply global standards, but local knowledge. There are global standards for everything. But I want to encourage us to look particularly at what we call traditional ecological knowledge. We have certain traditional knowledge that is useful for sustainable development in this country. Again, I challenge the center to work with the other departments in the university to come up with research that will begin to upscale and make mainstream some of the traditional ecological knowledge that we have in the country. The value has been shown by research. You can't just borrow hook, line, and sinker what is done in other parts of the world. I'll give you a simple example, very simple one. Attending a meeting in California, several experts drawn from all over the world were sitting down in a meeting, and somebody whispers to me, "Why did you write in your report that a project can lead to bad social vices like prostitution? You shouldn't put that in a report. Prostitution is, is accepted all over the place." I now said to him, "I'm sorry. Whether it is practiced or not, in Nigeria, prostitution is illegal." It's the same way as they're trying to, serve us with this LGBTQ thing. We respect them if that's what they support, right? But culturally, we have a different view to it. So traditional ecological knowledge, and I will put social knowledge, are critical to sustainable development practices. Of course, environmental awareness is good. I say to people, starting from 2023, any graduate that leaves a university without going through a course on sustainability or sustainable development is not educated. I am sorry to say. The environment is too important for you to make sustainable development or sustainability an elective, something that you choose to take. Nope. It must be a compulsory course, like the use of English language. And this has to start from the primary school, from the secondary school, And it has to be focused also in tertiary institutions. So to the University of Lagos, if as of today, your undergraduates are not being made to take a course of sustainable development or sustainability as a compulsory course, I want to encourage you and request that you please start working on that immediately. We need to teach our kids the basics of nature, the key connections to nature, waste recycling, climate change issues, and others. There's also what we call ecological literacy at the rural level. You know, when people don't understand certain things, right, you'll be amazed at what they do. I'll give you 2 examples. One, as a bachelor, I have a young man washing and cleaning my bathroom. For me, he comes, cleans it, he's very hardworking, and he goes. One day, I happened to step into the bathroom at the same time that he's cleaning it. And he has the brush that is used to wash the inside of the toilet bowl. He has it on the sink where my toothbrush is. And he's singing to himself as he's scrubbing the sink, right, with that brush used for the toilet bowl. But I tell you what, he doesn't know better. Another example, back in the days, women used to fry akara with transformer oil. Transformer oil that is drained and changed from electrical transformers that we have around. Because they said it gave the akara a different type of brownness, right? And probably had a certain calorific value. And it was, that particular brown akara was very popular. People used to like it a lot. But those who know that transformer oil contains what we call polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, which are toxic, carcinogenic, and all that. But I tell you, they who are frying the akara and the people that are eating that akara, they don't know. These people will probably never know if they don't go to the walls of a university. But they're in the rural environment, and so outreach is required so that these people can understand what we call ecological literacy. There are many other practices that are out there. The next thing for Nigeria is we need to reward and incentivize sustainability. You know, every time they reel out the names of those that collect OFR, CON, OON, and so on and so forth, I am looking for Professor Alor's name. I am looking for other giants of sustainability. They are never there. They are never there. That tells you that it's not important to the country. Instead, they are giving those big government officials, the people who work for you and I, they are giving them those honors. We need to start rewarding people that are pushing sustainability. Similarly, a lot of young kids who have ideas should be encouraged. Essays. Give them money, pay them to write good essays and research. We need to incentivize sustainability. Other areas are tax reliefs for things that support sustainable development initiatives, renewable energy, waste to wealth, afforestation and reforestation, and then ecotechnology. Let us celebrate the champions of sustainability. They are important for our survival. For CENHURD, what are my specific recommendations? It should become a center of excellence for sustainability. I do know there are a number of centers in this place, but I want to challenge the chairman of the center and other members, myself inclusive, to work towards establishing CENHURD as a center of excellence for sustainability. What does that mean? It should prepare environmental practitioners, Collaboratively develop and deliver curriculums with other centers. I know there are other centers, there are other departments. I do know, for instance, there's an EIA course that is being offered by chemistry, right, and others. Work with them to be at the center of it all. Support internships. In line with the Vice Chancellor's thinking, we should try and strengthen the linkage between the academia and the corporate world. Courses and training programs offered must focus on the needs of the marketplace. There is no need making a first class or scoring very high in skill sets and knowledge that cannot be utilized. Why do I say this? I have been an employer of labor for a few decades, and a lot of the graduates that have come with one environmental related degree or the other, unfortunately need some retraining. They need significant retraining. They cannot work on their own. And the reason, with all due respect, is that the training that they get has not been sufficiently designed to meet the needs of the marketplace. And so I challenge the center again to take a look at all the training programs that are being offered related to sustainability, and as may be necessary, tweak them to make sure they meet the needs of the marketplace. This will cut across important and related disciplines. Some of the important topics that a practitioner needs to know about: the interdependencies between nature and society, environmental economics, environmental regulatory frameworks, EIA. In spite of the number of years that we have been carrying out EIA in Nigeria, there's still many people that come out and tell you have been trained on EIA who don't know what to do. There's also strategic environmental assessment, which is key, because strategic environmental assessment helps you to deal with the gaps that exist when you carry out project-based EIAs. The basics of climate change are important, especially as pertain to our country. I talked about eco-technology. The circular economy is another issue. And then adaptive management. Do not think or do not accept that because you do not know all the answers, you will not do something. We need to continue doing by learning. GIS, every environmental practitioner needs to understand the basics of GIS, because every environmental problem has an address: latitude, longitude. Project management is another key skill that they need to learn. At least understand the basics of project management. How do you run a project? How do you manage people? How do you manage budgets? These are all important. And once again, Prof, this will not be new to you. I'm sure you will take the challenge. I have reached the end, though. In conclusion, environmental mainstreaming is a prerequisite for sustainable development. I talked about Nigeria being in a precarious situation, as is evident from the nature and scale of our environmental problems, and of course, our poor performance on the sustainable development goals. Our state of poverty and population growth are compounding our environmental issues. We have some key actions to take: governance, governance, governance. Improve collaboration. I don't know if it still happens, but there used to be a bit of territorialism those days in the academia. In fact, I once heard an academician say this: so he wants to come now and be lecturing on campus after conquering the entrepreneurship world. No, let him stay there. This is our area. That type of territorialism cannot help us at all. Improve collaboration. Is it not the same environment that we all own? It's for everybody. Are you territorial about that environment? We need to improve education and awareness, as I mentioned. Data acquisition and collation. Environmental justice is key. Otherwise, environmental law is useless. Environmental practitioners, there may be some here, either existing or aspiring. What I say to you all is, you need to be a change agent. You need to dare to be different. you need to be the change that you seek. CENHURD must develop courses that are relevant to industry, incorporate traditional ecological knowledge in its courses, pursue mutually beneficial collaboration. The Nigerian Environmental Society is the main NGO that will be driving the recently passed Institute of Environmental Practitioners bill. And so I encourage you to collaborate with the Nigerian Environmental Society. The good thing is that the chairman of our center, Professor Alo, is a past president. I am immediate past interim president. Professor Olusegun is an active member. We are waiting to bring on board Mr. Olowoyo into the gang. With the dawn of a new administration, let's all hope and aspire and work towards improved governance and justice across all facets of our existence. The most important building blocks for environmental mainstreaming. Once again, I thank you for giving me the honor of speaking to you all. And let me say, thank you for listening to me.
Brilliant lecture from the Managing Director, Environmental Resource Managers Limited, Mr. Victor Imevbore. Thank you very much for that thought-provoking lecture. He is a fellow of the Nigerian Environmental Society. Thank you very much, sir, for that lecture. Yours truly is not a proponent of mathematics. I always say that the maths I love is money mathematics. But Mr. Victor Imevbore started speaking to us at 12:16 p.m. and ended at 1:20 p.m. That meant he spoke for 1 hour, 4 minutes, 48 seconds. A round of applause for him. Excellent. I heard you clearly, sir. But I think if I have a taste of one of transformed akara, it will not do me any bad. I want to see how that transformed akara looks like. Transformed bean cake. What a bean cake that is. Let me just quickly, before I call on our own Professor Chukwu to give the vote of thanks, to just quickly appreciate this set of people. Seated with us this afternoon is a Unilag gold medalist, former Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management Services, Professor Duro Oni, fellow Nigeria Academy of Letters. A round of applause for him. We also want to appreciate for his time the immediate past Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Research, Professor Oluwole Familoni, FAS. A round of applause for him. The Dean-elect, School of Postgraduate Studies, Professor Abraham Oshinubi. A round of applause for him. Professor Veji Oyene, thank you very much, ma, for coming. I appreciate you and I celebrate you, ma. Professor Nwokuma, thank you very much, sir, for coming. We appreciate you. The Acting Director, NIMASA, Dr. Badejo, thank you very much for coming. And of course, for the wife of our own Professor Chukwu, thank you very much, ma, for coming. Dr. Mrs. Chukwu Ngozi, thank you very much. The wife of the Acting Director of the Works and Physical Planning Department, Engineer Johnson Akiwande, the wife is here. Thank you very much, ma, for coming. We appreciate you. All right, at this juncture, I respectfully want to invite the only LOC for life. Every other LOC has to be dissolved and maybe reconstituted if need be. But the only LOC is Professor Lucien Obina Chukwu, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management Services, for his vote of thanks.
Chairman, sir, let me stand on existing protocols because the time has been fast spent and has also been very well spent. Do you agree with me? Yes. Thank you. So let's quickly, before I continue with the vote of thanks, appreciate the chairman and the guest lecturer with let me invite the Vice Chancellor of this university, ably represented by the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development Services, Professor Ashenwa Ayodele Victoria, to present our little token of appreciation to the chairman of this event.
Thank you very much. Indeed, it is a great honor to make this presentation to you, Chief Olusegun Osunkeye, CON, OFR, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, the entire University of Lagos community, and indeed, CENHURD, which is one of the centers of the university, in recognition of your immense contributions to environmental management on this occasion of the CENHURD Maiden Public Lecture, today, 20th of July, 2023. We are deeply grateful. Thank you, sir.
The next one will go to the guest lecturer. Permit me, Chairman of the Board, to invite one of the members of the gang, the former general manager in an NPC, upstream sector, and currently a pastor of the Redeemed Church of Christ, who is also a member of the board of CENHURD. Let me invite Pastor Bisi Olowoyo to come and make this presentation. To his
Thank you very much. The chairman of the occasion, the representative of the Vice Chancellor, our own chairman of the center. So very coincidental and funny that Professor Chukwu has called me to come and present this plaque to one of the gang members. And I think it must be very, very deliberate, but it's a good thing. We've enjoyed this lecture, I must say, and kept all of us in our week. We're not dozing, we're not sleeping, and just shows the level of what you are doing. So on the behalf of the CENHURD, this has been presented to Mr. Victor Imevbore, one I've worked with for several years. Very tough and rough and very rugged man. In recognition of your immense contributions to environmental management and CENHURD Maiden Public Lecture, this day, 20 July 2023, courtesy of Center for Environmental Human Resource Development. I'd like to say thank you very much for such inspiring lecture, and God bless you.
And we'll go there. Take them first, then we'll take with the entire team.
Oh, I want to present you first.
Thank you. Please, let's
have the
come this
center
way.
team. I think we should stay in front of the chair, not in
Oh, in front of the chair. Okay.
Okay. And yes. Recall, please.
Thank you. For the chairman. Guest speaker.
I have guest speaker. Can I?
Just 1 minute. You bring your phone. Bring his phone. Bring those phones. Thank you very much. Well, you can see that the hall is fully depleted for various obvious reasons. There are very, very serious meetings on campus today. So that's why the VC had to leave earlier, and you can see virtually all the deans, HOD, everybody has left in trying to reassess the situation and know how to push the frontiers of the university forwards. So let me start quickly by appreciating the chairman of today's event, Chief Osunkeye. It was a very short notice that you were conducted to chair this event, and you graciously accepted, and in your character, you were here by 10:30. We thank you very much, sir, for not only sharing this, but for those very good words of wisdom which you shared with us. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. In the same vein, let me also appreciate the Vice Chancellor. Despite a very tight schedule, she was able to be present here and to show commitment to what we are doing here. She also requested the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Development Services to represent here at this event. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, help me appreciate the Vice Chancellor of this great university, Professor Folashade Ogunshola. I will also thank Professor Ayodele Ashenwa in her own capacity as the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Development Services. Now the guest lecturer. The choice of the guest lecturer was deliberate. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in your opinion, did he perform creditably, excellently? Can we please give him a round of applause? Guest lecturer, Mr. Victor Imevbore, we want to thank you. I can also tell you that all those recommendations you have made, we will look at them very critically and ensure that those that concerns the university will be properly addressed, and those that concerns the CENHURD board. Our chairman, you could see, was taking notes profusely while you were speaking. So that goes to show you that there's a serious commitment to those suggestions you have made here today and recommendations. I will leave our chairman last. And following from the guest lecturer, we want to appreciate his beloved wife and members of the ERML community family that are here to come and please, can you stand up? Let's recognize and clap for you. Okay, that's the guest lecturer's wife seated over there in black. And here, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Let me also appreciate the members of the board of CENHURD that are here, those that have also joined online. We appreciate you for making sure that this event today sees the light of the day. We thank you all, members of the board of CENHURD. The university management, the deans, directors, deans-elect that grace this occasion, despite the fact that you have left, we want to appreciate you for coming to join us at this lecture. The directors of other research centers, 26 of them, and I saw a number of them here today, Professor Ngokoma of SEPA and amongst others. Through you, we extend our felicitations to other members of the research centers we have at the University of Lagos. We also want to really thank, in a special way, one of the gurus we have in the environmental industry, Professor Mrs. Selina Maduemezia. She's retired but not tired, and during her days at the Lagos State Ministry of Environment, you cannot but realize her presence in every occasion. We thank you very much, ma'am. She was also here very, very early. At about 10:30, she was seated in this venue. Our former principal officers, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics and Research, Professor Luwale Familoni, the President of the Nigerian Academy of Letters, Professor Duro Oni, Professor Lainka, all other senior members of staff that found time to come and join us at this event. We appreciate you. The Acting Director of our Maritime Institute, Dr. Badejo, we appreciate your time. Distinguished colleagues from across the faculties that have found time to be here today. But most importantly, our students, for whom this lecture was actually meant for. I am glad and happy that you were able to make it. Great Akokites, great Akokites, greatest of the greatest of the greatest of the great. We thank you, we appreciate you for coming. Let me also, before I round up, now appreciate our own dear distinguished Professor Babajide Alo. It was during their tenure, when he was Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics and Research, that this move towards establishing research centers came up. And he successfully chaired and steered CENHURD all through that period until his retirement. Sir, I also promise to ensure that the very big baggage you have put on me as the next team lead, you will always look back to say it was a good decision to have asked him to do that. I must not fail to acknowledge members of the planning committee for this event. It was a very, what I can call short notice, and they all stood and worked assiduously. Communications unit, we appreciate you, Alaja Alaga, and your team. This event was live streamed. We also want to appreciate the director of CITS and the team who ensured that we had the lecture online on Zoom. The other support staff that assisted in doing this, Mr. Onoka, the veteran, and Geoffrey of the postgraduate school, we appreciate you, and Wale. Mrs. Kehinde and the group, we want to thank you alongside with the ushers. Permit me, Mr. Chairman, my wife, who has also come in here to join us at this event, Mrs. Chuku and Mrs. Akinwande, and then Mrs. Philomena Oche from the Federal Ministry of Education. We appreciate you all. Lastly, we thank the Almighty God that has made it possible for us to be here today, and not only being here, but giving us very clement weather to be there. We give all the glory to you. I left out the TV, Unilag TV, the very first TV station, university TV station in Nigeria. Mrs. Eke and the team, we thank you. So on that note, I appreciate you all and want to promise that this is just a tip of the iceberg. You'll be having more of these lectures. As the guest lecturer has said, some will come in form of webinars, so we can do that in the comfort of our homes. So on behalf of the board, the chairman who is here, Professor Babajide Allah, the Pastor Bisi Olowoyo, Dr. Mrs. Adegite, and other members of the board, we want to thank you all for coming, and may the good Lord lead you safely to respective homes. Thank you.
A round of applause for the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management Services, Professor Lucien Obinachukwu, member and team lead. Yes, you thanked everybody, but you forgot me. No problem. I'll thank myself. As we bring it to a close, the Deputy Team Lead, Dr. Akim Abayomi, will give us the closing prayer. But permit me to also say, with the kind permission of our chairman, our guest speaker, and our DVC DS, that we have some television stations here. Arise Television is here. We thank you for coming. We have people from the print also. Thank you. We appreciate you. God bless you.
We want to thank the Almighty. We sought your presence at the beginning of this program. We thank you for being with us. The program went according to plan. We also seek your grace that the gauntlet that has been thrown to us, the center, by the guest speaker, you give us the will, the means, and the strength to execute these programs. In the name of the Almighty Allah, we pray that you guide us to our various destinations and continue to be with us as we seek your grace on earth. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, arrahmanirrahim, maliki yawmiddin, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim, ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amen. Thank you.
Okay. My final thank goes to one of my big mentors, Professor Olusegun, for giving me the opportunity to host this big event. Like we always say, in life, you must make a choice to take a chance, or else your life will never change. Adios, amigos. Gracias. Obrigado. Siabunga. Danke. Merci. God bless you all and have a productive weekend ahead.